There is a Hogwarts Legacy secret you only have one chance to see without having to start a completely new playthrough. Look, at this point, I'm sure you already know about the gravestone behind the gamekeeper's hut, the Chamber of Secrets sink, and the random dragon flying about the world. But today, I'll show you the secret you only have one shot to notice, as well as 9 other Easter eggs you don't want to miss, including one I haven't seen anyone talking about yet that the developers at Avalanche just teased in a recent live stream. First up, that Easter egg that you only have one shot at seeing per playthrough. Well, when Deputy Headmistress Matilda Weasley introduces you to the Room of Requirement, you'll need to first pass through the Room of Hidden Things, which is one form of the Room of Requirement. Now, thinking back to the original Harry Potter series, this is actually where Voldemort hid one of his Horcruxes that Harry had to go and find in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. You'll only pass through this area one time for each playthrough, and you cannot enter again. There are a few interesting things to find here, like this letter. There's also a Jack-in-the-Box that some fans think is a reference to Severus Snape, but to me, those are not the most interesting objects here. But first, a quick history lesson. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Peeves drops a vanishing cabinet over Filch's office and damages it in the process. Later, in Order of the Phoenix, Fred and George Weasley shove Montague of Dolores Umbridge's Inquisitorial Squad into what is most likely the very same vanishing cabinet. Being broken, it doesn't work as it's supposed to, and Montague nearly dies trying to apparate out. It's actually through Montague's experience that Draco Malfoy figures out the broken cabinet in Hogwarts is linked to a cabinet in Borgin and Burke's. And ultimately, if you know the story, Malfoy figures out how to repair the cabinet with Borgin's help and ends up sneaking the Death Eaters directly inside Hogwarts near the end of Book 6. This cabinet was moved to the Room of Hidden Things after Montague's traumatic experience. Well, it just so happens in Hogwarts Legacy, during your quick walk through the Room of Hidden Things, you can spot a vanishing cabinet. Now, if you take a look at the screenshot from the movie here, there's no denying it is meant to be a vanishing cabinet, but could it be the very same one? I suppose the question would be just who took it out before Peeves decided to use it to torment Filch. Remember, Hogwarts Legacy takes place in the late 1800s, so at some point between the late 1800s and then Harry's arrival at the school, it needed to make its way out of the Room of Hidden Things before making it back in again. And even if it's not meant to be the exact same cabinet, it's clearly a nod to fans about what will happen all those years later. Up next, we have a secret in Hogsmeade that I somehow missed throughout my entire first 80 hours with the game. So if you go to the main square area just across from Honeyduke's, there's a spot here where you'll often find someone selling copies of the Daily Prophet during the daytime hours. Now, first up, this is only there during the daytime hours, but in addition to that, it's also only there at certain times throughout the year. So whenever you find this stand, make sure you go approach the stand and you'll actually be able to take a look at the cover of the paper. Not only that though, you can also interact with the paper and get a close-up view for one of the day's main stories. What's even more interesting is that even if you don't see a different cover, from what I could see, they only had about 2 or 3 covers, but there are actually quite a few different stories that you can find, and they update each new day. Some of them even build on stories from previous days. There's one about a Cornish wizard arrested for breeding basilisks, another about someone crossbreeding a dragon and a chicken, which could be a nod to Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix when Mr. Weasley has a conversation with a ministry official who's confiscated, you guessed it, a fire-breathing chicken. I won't spoil them all here, but one of my personal favorites has to be the story of a mother who believes her son has lost his soul to a Dementor. There's even a line here about her trying to give him chocolate, which of course is known throughout the wizarding world as a short-term remedy to cheer someone up if they've been in the presence of Dementors. Now for our next secret here, did you know our Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, Dinah Hecat, isn't nearly as old as she may first appear? You see, you can actually learn even more about the backstory for many of the Hogwarts Legacy professors, way more than what you get in just the normal classes. All you have to do is return to their classrooms after your designated class times. You'll have the option to speak with them further, to even ask more questions about their past and teaching subject. By talking to Professor Hecat after class, you'll learn she worked as an unspeakable in the Department of Mysteries. Now, being an unspeakable, it's no surprise she can't share too many specifics about what she did during her time in that role. She does tell us, though, that appearances can be deceiving and that she was once wounded by time itself. Now, if you remember in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, there's a moment where Harry and his friends discover a bell jar inside the time room. This jar has a tiny hummingbird inside, and as they watch, it transforms from an egg to fully grown bird and back to an egg again. Of course, later on during the battle at the Department of Mysteries, one of Voldemort's Death Eaters falls into the bell jar. His head begins to rapidly shift through time, transforming from a man's head to a baby's head. Now, as one extra little tip here, you can learn even more about most of the professors by fully upgrading your Alohomora spell. This will allow you to get inside any room in Hogwarts, including the private study and living quarters for most of these professors. There you'll find plenty of items and decorations to get a sense of their style, but in most of these you'll even find letters written to them by close friends or family members. Now, speaking of the boy who lived himself, there's also an absolutely beautiful Easter egg for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Fans will no doubt remember this iconic scene both from the movies and from the books when Harry and Hermione travel back in time to save Buckbeak and Sirius Black. In the series, this is where Harry casts a full corporeal Patronus from across the lake, which of course takes the form of the stag. Now, it just so happens you'll come across this very same lake in Hogwarts Legacy inside the Forbidden Forest. There's actually a mission that will take you here, and when you approach the lake, there will be a stag around the lake, and your character will even comment on the stags that are there.
Something oddly solemn about this place. Such regal creatures, stags.
Avalanche Software has started doing their own Twitch live streams for the game, and in their most recent stream, they teased an Easter egg I haven't seen anyone else talking about yet. I was actually in the chat trying to get them to answer this question. Are there secrets we haven't found yet? Of course, Peeves had to get in the way and distract right after I asked the question, but eventually, a little bit later in that stream, they approached this vase here just outside the Room of Requirement. Now, if you make your way over to this vase and adjust your camera to see inside, you'll notice there are 2 bottles of butterbeer here. And what they said is that this was a nod to something that happens in the future, not necessarily something there in Hogwarts Legacy. So personally, seeing how close this is to the Room of Requirement, I believe it's actually a nod to a plot point from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This plot point featured Dobby and Winky the House Elf. If you remember from that book, Winky actually got her job in the Hogwarts kitchens after getting sacked by Barty Crouch. However, she was not happy about this and did not enjoy her job at Hogwarts. She ended up going into a state of depression and became addicted to butterbeer. I know, it sounds kind of comical at first, but it's actually a very tragic story. She just remains addicted. She basically becomes an alcoholic with butterbeer. Now, you may say, well, this doesn't have alcohol, and it's true. The popular Wizarding World beverage is said to contain very little alcohol. However, it still proves to be too much for a small house elf, especially when consumed in large quantities. Now, for a time, she actually completely neglects her work at Hogwarts. Many of the other house elves become embarrassed by this, by the fact that she's basically just drinking butterbeer all the time. Dobby, of course, being the amazing, awesome character that he is, tries to take care of her. He even ends up finding a bed from the Room of Requirement where he can go and lay Winky whenever he finds her intoxicated from consuming too much butterbeer. So personally, my guess is that these 2 bottles of butterbeer could very well be a small nod to Dobby and how he ends up caring for Winky all those years later as she struggles through her butterbeer addiction. Now, that last one, I think it's pretty hard to find. I mean, we had to have Avalanche tell us exactly where to look, but you know what? It turns out some of the most well-kept secrets are hidden in plain sight. On your way to the dungeons, you'll come across this tapestry here. Now, many of you probably know about the secret room here, but there's a little bit more here. Now, what looks like a normal tapestry actually contains a hidden entrance. You can walk straight through the quay, and you'll find it was actually a hidden doorway all along. You can find a field guide page here, as well as a tapestry that tells the story of a mother who was bitten and turned into a werewolf. But to reveal the full story, there's actually a special use for the Lumos spell. So if you want to see the story in the correct order, you'll start with the far left and look at each tapestry exactly as is. Then, when you get to the very last tapestry, get right up close and cast Lumos. Then turn Lumos off, go to the next tapestry. This is going to be 1 step to your left now, and go all the way back to the original tapestry to see the full story. Now, stuff like this I absolutely love. I mean, it has me asking the question, is it possible there are other secrets in the game still waiting to be discovered that just require a certain spell in a very specific location? And also behaving in a way that it doesn't normally behave. I mean, I can't think of anywhere else in the game where we see Lumos do something quite like this. All right, our next secret involves one of the magical creatures in Hogwarts Legacy. Now, if you've managed to breed unicorns yet in one of your Room of Requirement vivariums, you may have been surprised to see that the unicorn is gold, despite the coloration of its parents. Now, this is not some sort of glitch or a rare type of unicorn. It's actually accurate to the original lore of the Wizarding World. According to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the companion book that is, not the movie of the same name, unicorn foals were born gold instead of white, silver, or gray. They actually remain gold until they're about 2 years old when they begin turning silver. By 4, they'll have their horn, and then by 7, they're considered fully grown and will be pure white in coloration. In Hogwarts Legacy, it seems that newborn creatures bred in the vivariums will remain in that state and will not grow into adults. So once you have that gold unicorn, you'll get to keep the little baby forever. Now, given Hogwarts Legacy's late 1800s time frame, it's set back far enough that many of the iconic wizards and witches we know from the original series are not present in the game. Sure, you'll notice the house ghosts like Nearly Headless Nick, and of course Peeves the Poltergeist makes frequent appearances throughout, but there's one witch that appeared on a chocolate frog card in the original Harry Potter video games. Saccharissa Tugwood makes an appearance in Hogwarts Legacy both as a student wandering the halls, but also in a more prominent role with the spot removal quest. After talking with her outside Dogweed and Deathcap, you'll learn she's been experimenting with a new beauty cream. She's run out of the key ingredient, boobatuber pus. That's right, you heard me correctly, and just so happens she needs our help to find more. It's a simple quest, but still a really fun nod for fans, considering that Tugwood would go on to having her likeness appear on a famous witch card, all due to her discovery of the pimple-curing properties of boobatuber pus. Now for our next one, I actually had the incredible privilege to meet game director Alan Tu in person back at a pre-release event before the launch of the game. When he was talking with us, he teased a fun little secret that involves the potential for special interactions based on the appearance of the gear you're wearing. So far, fans have already discovered a few different dialogue options for the pajamas in the game.
Shameful. Go back to your dorm and change into your school robes immediately.
But I'm still trying others. I mean, surely there has to be one when you're dressed as a knight, right? Don't you think? Have you guys found any others? If you have, let me know in the comments below and I'll try to test it out myself. And our next little secret here involves one of the most powerful late game spells, and that is the transformation spell, especially if you use a talent point to upgrade it. This spell will let you transform enemies in battle into an explosive barrel and then use the ancient magic throw to send that barrel flying back at another enemy. But like Lumos earlier, the transform spell also has an extra function in that it can transform many of the animals you see throughout the world of Hogwarts Legacy. I know, right? Blew me away too. Now don't let the fact that you can't lock on fool you. I always have to use the left trigger for help with targeting the animal. Now there are some animals I have not seen this work on, but the majority of them it will work on, including fish. Now the first time I discovered this, I thought that's it, that's where it ends. But if you keep going, sometimes you may actually get the animal to transform into coins. I have no idea what triggers this. If there's a secret to it, who knows? Maybe it's just a bug, but the coins definitely don't happen too often when I was testing this out, so it very well could just be a random but intended Easter egg. That transformation spell is just one of the many incredible spells in Hogwarts Legacy. I actually ranked every spell in the game, so if you want to see where it ranks on the list, check out the video on the right side of your screen now. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.